West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
This mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create
Bacchias
ozone.
or Bacchias is a metrical foot of 3 syllables, the first short, the other 2 long.
We have the lineage of origin.
It's from Latin, which formed it from a Greek
what we're
word.
doing is taking a
Bacchias.
series of flyovers,
May I have
each
the
at a
alternate
different level of the
pronunciations?
atmosphere, scooping up
Bacchias,
those emissions,
Bacchias.
testing them, and
Bacchias,
hopefully scientists are going to
Bacchias.
see exactly
Can you
what's
use it in a
this
sentence?
column of air all
Rumor
the way
has
up.
it that Drake's next mixtape contains a...
Can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
We came here to Foster City where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel will wear the proper protective equipment. This includes all personnel identified as staff, students, role players, VIPs, and support staff. Please, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your masks prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working conditions.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back to
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like, it could be like a mugging kind of thing.
just like on the street?
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with,
Uh-huh.
and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's me, kiddos. Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm here. It's Friday. Casual Friday. May 29th, 2015. So you got me for the next 3 hours. I want to thank you for tuning in, wherever you may happen to be, on one of your liberal talk stations and or, of course, on iHeartRadio, the TuneIn app, or TawkrTV or Free Speech TV. Any of those. Getting you ready for the weekend here in the summertime. It's getting a little warmer out. Once again, I'm Clinton Yates. I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Bill Press Show. Everybody's here except for Bill. Just me. Hello, Peter.
Clinton, how are you, sir?
I'm good today.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Thank you. Lisa Murphy's here across the boards.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. If you give us a phone call at 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Finally memorized that number, by the way. You'll talk to Jamie Benson. And, of course, if you want to see what I'm wearing, what am I wearing today? I'm wearing a black and white checkered shirt with a green sweater.
Moss green sweater.
Moss green sweater. Cyprian Bolding, wrestling fan, will have you, looking at us presentably. So
I only wish Cyprian had a camera on himself so we could see his T-shirt today.
Well, why don't you tell the people what his T-shirt says?
He's wearing a Suplex City T-shirt.
Suplex City.
Suplex City.
I mean, you're walking around wearing a Suplex City T-shirt.
Yeah.
That means you want something. That's basically what that means. Anyway, all right, enough with the foolishness. So I will tell you what I did last night. I was with an unnamed friend of the show who has had some good news recently. You all who are longtime listeners can sort that out for yourself. But we were singing karaoke.
Yo!
Yes,
okay.
there was a karaoke incident, if you will. And here's my thing on karaoke. My basic rule is if you have to look at the words at all, you should not be singing the song. I want to know what you think about this because it can get tricky because there's songs that you think you know that you realize that you don't know, and it's very awkward. But then there's songs that you definitely know, and it's way more fun to just rock out. And I don't understand why people like karaoke so much when it's like you don't know this song. You just know the chorus. You don't know any of the lyrics.
Right.
You just want
to,
and then you belt out the chorus, and it's very embarrassing for all involved.
It's terrible.
I sang one song. I'll tell you that after you tell me your thoughts.
Okay. I can't say that I do karaoke very often.
No, I mean this is a once a year at best.
Once a year at best.
Exactly.
Situation That's the best way to describe it. But I have a karaoke song that I do, and I only do this one.
Well, we're gonna have to go through all this for everybody, just so you know.
Yeah. Be ready.
Yeah.
I only do the one song because I know all the words. It doesn't matter how much I've had to drink.
So you're a solo karaoke guy.
I'm a solo karaoke guy.
Right. Nobody can share the stage with you.
No.
It's not like a family situation.
I've never done the family. I've never done it with more than one person.
Okay.
But I always do.
What is it? Reveal.
Vehicle by the Ides of March.
What?
Always.
Really?
Always.
It's pretty obscure.
I was going to say that.
Come on, you don't know that?
That's
yeah,
but I mean,
it's big, man.
I know that more from like radio talk-up lead-ins than I do for the actual song.
I'm telling you, I know it. That's my song. That's
Fair enough. Elisa, what's your go-to?
Probably be the Black Eyed Peas. Where is the love? Because I like to, do a little white girl rapper thing too.
That's a good one.
And it's a really good chorus. And I actually have a friend, Rena. I'm not kidding you. She will come over with her karaoke machine, and she's in her 40s.
Oh, you guys.
She comes over, has a few drinks and wants to sing Mariah Carey songs. That's when there may be some deep-rooted issues.
If you own a karaoke machine
in 2015, and you are more than 12 years old, what's going on? No, that's interesting. So anyway, I sang last night. It was a group setting.
Okay.
a celebratory situation.
Yes.
And, there were guys and there were girls there. And so I picked Run This Town by Jay-Z, Kanye, and Rihanna. Banger of a karaoke song.
Awesome.
Don't get it twisted.
And multiple people could get in on that.
Exactly. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of verses. There's a good yelling situation. Anyway, it was great. It was very good. We got a lot more to get to today. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. We knew who was taking over The Daily Show. He is Trevor Noah, and yesterday we found out the date that he's going to take over The Daily Show. September 28th. Mark it down on your calendar.
All right.
We know that Jon Stewart's last show is going to be August 6th, which is creeping up on us.
What do we think that's going to be like?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do.
I meant his last show specifically.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of...
I mean, you look at, like, Letterman, who just went away, who had a big kind of blowout, but didn't make it a sentimental farewell. He just did his show.
He just stood up there and said, peace out, yeah.
As opposed to, like, a Johnny Carson, who was, like, a career retrospective and very...
Or as opposed to Leno, who did 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah, right.
It's funny, last night, actually, Jon Stewart was talking about how Donald Trump yesterday said he might jump into the ring for 2016, and Jon Stewart is just clinging on, thinking, how can he even leave if this happens? So there might be hope at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. So we now know Trevor Noah is going to take over September 28th. So almost like 2 full months after Jon Stewart leaves.
That's weird.
Yeah, isn't it a little weird? Yeah, I thought that was a little weird. You want to buy a new house? You can now buy it in California. Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is on the market. 2,700 acres of California estate. It no longer has the amusement park rides or a lot of the weird animals. There is still a train station at Neverland Ranch.
Oh.
You want to buy this? It's gone on the market for $100 million.
That's insane.
It is insane.
$100 million. I mean, listen, I first of all, if you want to live in the Neverland Ranch, that's weird enough. I mean, to me, that's a tear everything down situation.
Right. I mean, yes,
and
it's weird and wild that Michael Jackson lived there, but there's some crimes that took place there.
Right. I mean, and beyond that, like, I would just, what kind of a person is going to say, you know what, I want to live where Michael Jackson used to live?
Yeah.
Seriously.
If you're not a fan, even if you are, you probably don't have $100 million to throw around. I mean, this smells of Jackson family trying to grab at straws, to reap the last monies they can
Squeeze
out of
it
his
all out.
dead corpse, because that's
$100 million.
That's way too much.
They call it Sycamore Valley Ranch now, by the way. It's no longer Neverland Ranch.
Get ranch out of the name.
Yeah, right?
I mean,
wouldn't you think?
That's what people
Wouldn't
remember.
you think? And we've got a couple days before more NBA playoff basketball, but that doesn't mean that there's not news happening right here in Washington, D.C. We don't know what's going to happen to Paul Pierce. Will Paul Pierce come back? That's the big question. One person who weighed in on this yesterday was celebrity chef Jose Andres.
Yes, sir.
Who sent out a tweet that directly to Paul Pierce said, "If you stay with us, Washington Wizards, sir, one more season, I personally will cook for you 1 night a month." So he will come to Paul Pierce's house and cook him dinner.
News broken by one Clinton Yates, the Washington Post right there.
Nice job. Nice job.
That's not a great deal for Paul Pierce, by the way.
Right?
Like, Jose Andres has like 8 restaurants in the area. If he would just go to the restaurants on his own, he could get a meal a month. I'm thinking you got to up that to at least a meal a pay period to make it worth Paul Pierce's, worthwhile.
Right.
Anyway, the joke, by the way, when I wrote that story was, the headline should be, Jose Andres' wife says, "You don't cook for me that much. Why don't you marry him?" That's a separate story. Anyway, all right, thank you.
You going to cook for your boyfriend, Paul Pierce, now, Jose?
Exactly. No, but that's a good deal. I would love it if you cook for me that much.
Yeah,
so,
right.
In way more serious matters, Denny Hastert. Now, so this story is very interesting. It broke overnight that he has been indicted by a federal grand jury, allegedly lied to the FBI, was handing out large sums of money to a person who accused him of past misconduct. We are not at this exact moment going to speculate on what this past misconduct might have been. However, apparently he violated federal banking laws in a bid to pay $3.5 million to this unnamed person. Tell us some background on Denny Hastert, for those of us who have forgotten. He retired from Congress 7 or 8 years ago, I believe.
Yeah. He's been out of office for a while.
Yeah.
He was in power 2002, 2003, 2004, in that area. And you might remember when Democrats stormed Congress and when the elections brought in so many Democrats around that time, it was all centered around this culture of corruption. Is a word that we heard Nancy Pelosi say so many times. We used to have a montage of her saying it every week, right? Every presser she had, she'd say it like 10 or 11 times. Because there was so much corruption flying around among specifically, and I know that we're a partisan show, but like there were an inordinate amount of Republicans getting popped for corruption around this time. And Denny Hastert was overseeing all of it. In 2006, the House Ethics Committee determined that Hastert and other congressional leaders were, quote, willfully ignorant and responding to early warnings of the Mark Foley congressional page scandal. Remember that?
Yes, we do.
Almost 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago?
Yeah, almost 10 years, 2006, that he helped cover that up. He saw what was happening with Mark Foley and these pages and the inappropriate relationships that he was having. And Hastert helped cover that up. Didn't do anything about it. Didn't sound the alarm. He didn't violate any laws at the time.
Right.
But it was certainly extremely shady.
Yes, absolutely. So if we do the radio math here on the speculation, which again is not for now, that's for the next segment. This is not a good situation for him. He's been a lobbyist on Casery for a while. And, you know, as much as you look, moving money around in different ways is a great way to get popped by the feds. Yeah. Does it necessarily mean you're the worst person on earth? I don't know. But that's what our question is today. I mean, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Do you think this guy should go to jail? I mean, do you think Hastert should and will go to jail for effectively handing out his own money at a rate that, federal laws don't allow?
I want to be clear. I think a lot of the reason that this story is so interesting to me is purely Schadenfreude.
Oh, yeah.
I like the fact that he's getting popped and at least taking some heat because he was such a scummy speaker. He was. He had a lot of shady deals when he was in power. I'm not so sure about this one.
Yeah, this doesn't. I mean, I don't think this is going to stick.
Yeah.
I mean, look. I used to work at a bank, CRTs or what they call CTRs, whatever they called. I filled these long forms to pull out money. People would come in all the time trying to pull out all sorts of cash, and they'd be like, "What do I got to do?" So I don't got to fill out the form. And you're like, "Come on, bro, don't put me in this position." Yeah. But because it's just as much paperwork for the person working at the bank as it is for the person taking out the money. I'm telling you that a lot of bankers are just like, "Here, do this. And then we'll see you in 2 weeks, and you can do that later." This sounds like a situation he's in. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Do you think Denny Hastert should and will go to jail? It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's all just moving around money, which is going to be a topic for the day, by the way. People moving around money in different ways. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. It's Friday, which means I'm wearing shorts. I'm also wearing Nikes. And I have a Washington Nationals t-shirt on because they're the best team in baseball. This is the Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless
encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law, so we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill here on a Friday. Talking about Denny Hastert. He is not in a good situation with the feds. They've accused him of moving money around illegally, which, is something that happens in this country. But what has gone unsaid seems to be far more salacious than what has actually been said. I am going to read to you from the paper that employs me, a story by Justin Moyer and Fred Barbash. Headline: Jaw-dropping Dennis Hastert indictment stirs deeper mystery. And I will read from it. It says, while the indictment did not spell out the exact nature of the prior misconduct by Hastert, it noted that before entering state and federal politics in 1981, Hastert served for more than a decade as a teacher and a wrestling coach at Yorkville High School in Illinois.
Pause. Okay.
I mean, look, I'm not really sure why that would need to be delineated unless the nature of the alleged misconduct was directly related to his relationship with that person whilst serving in that capacity. I will continue to read from this story. The indictment's allusion to Hastert's tenure as a wrestling coach and teacher was provocative. So was its reference to Individual A. Individual A claimed to have known Hastert most of his or her life. Individual A met with Hastert repeatedly in or about 2010 and, quote, discussed past misconduct by Hastert against him or her that had, quote, occurred years earlier, and allegedly Hastert paid Individual A off. This is not good for him.
That's bad.
I mean,
really bad.
Look, Hastert's what? He's 70-odd years old right now. It's one of those situations where you say, you thought that skeleton was buried very deep in the closet, and as it turns out, whatever you did is not only is it to the point where somebody felt the need to come after you for it, but you're getting popped on some side money thing.
Right.
Like, that's really, really weird, actually.
And the fact that he spent that much money over the years.
$3.5 million is not chump change. $1
million to pay somebody off. Let's be clear about what's going on. We don't know what the nature of it was, but he was paying somebody off. That's what's happening here. He's trying to keep somebody quiet or try and take care of somebody who knows something that Denny Hastert doesn't want other people to know about. What's worth $3.5 million?
Wild speculation.
866-55-PRESS,
866-557-7377. I mean, $3.5 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I guess to me, I wonder, like, how this process sort of unfolds. This person decides, what, they're fed up? If this is something that happened in the 70s or the 80s, and it takes until 2010 for this person to come out and say something against probably someone who is more powerful than they could ever imagine and might not even be able to get close to. I mean, I'm not gonna, again, you don't want to wildly speculate about what a guy did and did not do, but you have to think that this is something that is really, really affected more than, I'm going to say, one person.
Yeah.
Because $3.5 million is not that's not the kind of money you don't have that hiding under your mat. You don't go into the couches and say, oh, right, I forgot about that time that you lent me a couple bucks to buy a beer when I was, broke in college or whatever. Like, $3.5 million is a serious amount of cash. And I guess I've got to believe that, again, livelihoods are at stake here because, I don't know, I don't expect to make $3.5 million in my lifetime.
Right.
And so for one person to get that for being a victim of something is really kind of frightening.
I don't think the story's over. I think we're going to find out what exactly is behind all
I think you're right. And when we're back, we're going to talk about what happened in 2016 because guess what? I'm running for president. I'm joking. I'm Clinton Yates. This is the Bill Press Show. Goodbye.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is, that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earthalujah.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning, folks. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for The Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill here on a Friday. Talking politics per usual. Peter?
Clinton, thank you for being here, bud.
You're welcome. George Elmer Pataki is running for president.
Hold up, wait.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Elmer?
Elmer. Hunting wabbits. So he's running for president. Former governor of New York, guy who's been, if you've been following politics for more than, I'd say, 10 years, you absolutely know who his name is.
Sure.
Which means he is we're up to what? How many candidates are we up to?
I think he was officially declared. I think he's 7 or 8.
But
there's like 19 as many as 21.
So we're into the counting this on 4 hands kind of territory for people that fingers and toes, exactly, for people that are running for president on the right side of the aisle. Why do you think the guy does this?
This fascinates me.
Yeah.
This year more than ever, because there's always in every election you're going to have somebody who's running who can't win. And they know they can't win. But they're running, to get their name out there, or to push an issue, or they're running for vice president or a cabinet position or whatever, right?
So you think that, because for Pataki, it's not like this guy is in office.
He hasn't been in office for a long time.
This is what I'm saying. It's not like, he is literally coming out of the woodwork for this.
So where does George Pataki go, right, if he doesn't run for president? I'm sure he can make a lot of money here or there or wherever, right? But if he runs for president and he picks up a head of steam, one thing you can say about him that's different than the last time around is he's not crazy. He's just a loser.
Right.
Republicans had Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain.
That's an interesting point.
All these people last time around who were running for president just to put their name out there, but they were never going to get a real position. They were never going to become, a cabinet member. George Pataki could be Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah, that's true.
Why don't Jeb Bush administration or whatever.
Let's hear from him on a couple of things he had to say. I mean, he's. Let's just go with the first one. Why is he running at all? Because he wants to be. Why is he a candidate?
It is to preserve and protect that freedom that this morning I announce I am a candidate for the Republican nomination for President of the United States.
That's the moment right there. That's why people do it. I think people just want to get in front of a microphone and say, I'm running for president.
In 10 years,
and
you'll be showing everybody that video.
Have people cheer. That's it. You know,
remember this?
It's right. Remember that it's like Al Bundy talking about Polk High. That time he scored 4 touchdowns in a game, and you're like, dude, nobody cares about that. Nobody remembers when you were in East Bufu announcing that you were going to run for president.
How easy is it to run for president now? I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure that these people that are getting into this really want this, but it should maybe be harder to run for president.
I think so.
When a guy like George Pataki is out there and captures the news cycle for the day.
Look, he grew up on a farm. In case you didn't know, he can tell us.
The problems we face are real, but I've never been one to dwell on problems. I'm a solutions guy. When you grow up on a farm and you have a problem, you don't ask the government to solve it. You just figure out what needs to be done and go do it. That's the American way.
Okay, so he's running for Secretary of Agriculture.
I mean,
with the farm.
You think so?
Yeah,
that's
him openly campaigning. For campaigning. I grew up on a farm. Wink,
wink, nod. Yeah, because he can't win. He also said what he would do if he was elected in the Pataki regime.
I'd repeal oppressive laws like Obamacare and end Common Core.
Oppressive laws.
Classic boogeyman.
Oppressive laws.
Yeah.
And then he did, the best part about this, though, to me, is that he takes a great jab at someone with whom I share a name.
Our Justice Department will treat all fairly and uphold the Constitution. No one will be above the law, not even if you're a former Secretary of State whose name happens to be Clinton.
All right. Okay, George. I mean, but I think your point is actually pretty salient, which is that he's not crazy.
No.
And that, at this point, for GOP candidates is a major accomplishment. If people don't presume you to be... No, I'm saying people don't presume you to be way out there.
That's very true.
You've got a decent shot of gaining some level of traction because people consider you to be a serious person, and that's kind of frightening.
Mitt Romney has always been a terrible candidate.
Yeah.
But he's not crazy. And that's how he got to be where he was. He was a serious contender in 2008, and he was the nominee in 2012.
Right.
George Pataki is Romney-esque in the sense that he's not out there the way that Rick Santorum is.
He is, dare I say, a poor man's Romney?
Yeah.
On some levels.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of issues that that he and Romney have plenty in common.
866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Jesse, good morning.
Hey, good morning to all.
How are you?
Hey, hi, man. Hey, I think the main reason all these guys is running for president is that $900 million lottery put up by the Koch brothers. What you think?
Thank you for the phone call. What do you think?
There's money. There's money to be made in running for president. Running for president is a great business model. You look at all of the people who kind of came out of nowhere and once they failed at their presidential bid, ended up with great contracts on TV.
Santorum is one of those guys.
Santorum is one of them.
He made a huge media career.
Mike Huckabee got a show on, like an actual his own program. This Mike Huckabee Good Time Variety Hour that he does on the weekends where he plays bass with Ted Nugent.
Who watches those?
Nobody. Nobody watches. But he got he is on TV with his own show because he ran for president.
Are these guys that hard up for money, though? I mean, come on. What are we talking
They're
about?
hard up for money, and they're hard up for the attention.
Yeah.
The media has to pay attention to you if you're running for president. George Pataki goes out and he gives a great speech on school reform a week ago. Nobody cares. George Pataki goes and gives a speech as Republican nominee for president.
That ain't happening. I mean, it might happen, but I should
say Republican candidate.
I just don't get. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I just don't get how many old white guys are they going to put up to run against a far more diverse and a far more in touch Democratic candidate. I mean, it's just it's so obvious to me that there are so many people that are using the lack of a front runner on the right side as just I'm taking a shot. Why not, guys? Yeah. Why not me? And people are coming out of the woodwork. Santorum and look again. If Donald Trump is still talking about this,
he's being very serious. And there are some reporters who have talked to his campaign that say he's running for president. He's got a big announcement planned on June 16th in New York City. And there are political reporters who have been in touch with him and his people, and they say, we're running.
If you're watching right now on TawkrTV, the look on my face is one of complete bemusement. I mean, look, are we really? Do you really think that's going to happen? I refuse to believe that Donald Trump is going to run for president.
He's flirted with this so many times that I don't think it's a reality. But this seems to, there are people who get paid to report this stuff who say, it looks like it's happening. He could be pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. It wouldn't be the first time.
What if he announces that his daughter's running? She'd be just as good a candidate as he would.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's fascinating to me the lack of serious contenders.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why Pataki is such an interesting character because you're like, well, at least you're an actual politician,
right?
You know what I mean?
But he doesn't have a shot.
No.
We're talking about with Donald Trump being serious about this. We're talking like 21 Republican candidates now. It was at like 19 because Donald Trump was sort of a fringe, and we weren't really sure about Bobby Jindal.
Yeah,
Bobby Jindal seems to be serious about it. We're looking at 21 candidates for the Republican.
If Donald Trump runs for president, I'm moving to Canada.
And only I can take you there.
Yes, shouts to
it's funny too. You can only have 10 people on the debate stage.
Yeah.
So they're already deciding how they're going to make those decisions.
And Trump makes the cut, by the way, because people seem to know who he is.
Well, that was one of the things that we were talking about earlier this week with Bill. It's like, how do you decide? So, Carly Fiorina might not be polling in the top 10 candidates, but are you really going to tell the one woman on the Republican side or Ben Carson that he can't be in the debates?
Probably.
So, they're going to have like an NIT debate with the also-rans.
What is going on?
It's going to be a whole thing.
This election is a year and a half away.
I know.
God, it makes me crazy. All right, anyway, that's enough of that. I'm tired of discussing Republican candidates. When we get back, we're just going to talk about it more because that's what we do here on the Bill Press Show. It's Friday. My name's Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning, folks. My name is Clint Yates. I write for The Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. Online with us, we have Assistant Washington Editor for The Nation, Zoe Carpenter. Good morning, Zoe.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, Congress is working on a Sunday? What's that about? Tell me why.
Congress is working on Sunday because they can't get their act together. We have Section 215 and a couple of other provisions of the Patriot Act expiring on June 1st, and the Senate failed to pass either a straight extension of Section 215, and it also failed to pass the USA Freedom Act, which is a package of modest reforms to that section.
Okay, so what does that mean to sort of average Americans? I mean, where are we? I guess my question is, where does that go from here if, I don't know, let's just say it doesn't get renewed?
Right.
Yeah, so Section 215 is the part of the Patriot Act that the government uses to justify its bulk collection of telephone records. Now, we've recently had a court ruling that said that that's actually not even legal under Section 215. So if it were to expire, the government would lose its ability to basically rake in all of those records about who you call, when you call them, perhaps your location, things like that. There may be other things that the government is doing under Section 215 that we actually don't even know about. So those activities would be put into jeopardy, too, if the section were to expire. And, you know, we've heard from the intelligence community that letting Section 215 expire would actually damage national security, but no one's been able to demonstrate how that provision has actually been useful to protect national security in a specific way.
That's what I wanted to hit on, is the argument for why they're coming in to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Is that you've seen this sort of waiver in recent years about the support for this thing, but specifically, it hasn't really done much to keep us safe. Like, that's sort of the consensus now. That's an accepted worldview. So why is this even being debated so hotly?
Well, I think it's sort of a proxy debate for other questions about the government's spying power or the executive branch's power when it comes to national security. You know, we've seen a number of issues related to balance of power between Congress and the White House. For example, the Senate's torture report, And I think the intelligence community views the slope as being a slippery one. So if they lose Section 215, maybe Congress is going to get big for its britches and go after, Executive Order 12333, or, one of those other laws that the executive branch uses to conduct some of this more secretive surveillance activity.
We're talking with Assistant Washington Editor for The Nation, Zoe Carpenter, here on the Bill Press Show. You wrote a great story about how libraries are on the front line of this discussion. Explain that to the people who don't really understand why it is that is the case.
Sure. So Section 215 was actually originally referred to as the library records provision because when it was passed, one of the things that it authorized was the bulk collection of tangible things, including library records, not just what books you checked out, but your search history on a library computer and those sorts of things. And libraries were really some of the first organizations, and librarians are some of the first people who really understood the implications of the Patriot Act, and that it was possible that it was a much more sweeping abuse of civil liberties than we thought at the time. And so they were active in protesting Section 215. And then more recently, librarians have really come out to be at the forefront of digital technology when it comes to privacy, basically saying, yes, the government has all these sweeping surveillance activities, but part of their ability to spy on you depends on how much information you give away online. So trying to teach patrons how to protect their privacy better with software and other tools.
Does the library lobby have any real power? I mean, I'm like laughing at myself even saying that, but I mean, is that a viable entity to really make any difference in this?
Well, I think it depends on what you consider as power. I think that librarians do have a lot of symbolic power. Their libraries are generally, polling shows that they're some of the most trusted institutions in the U.S., often, compared with local police departments, although I would be curious to see if that trust in local police departments has changed in the past couple of years. But anyways, libraries have, I think, everyone has a story to tell about libraries. And so the American Librarian Association itself, although it does have a legislative arm and is part of a coalition that's been pushing for the USA Freedom Act, I'm not sure how much, direct power they have. But in terms of a librarian's ability to raise awareness in their community, it's pretty huge. And when we saw that after the Patriot Act, their activism really was noticed by a wide swath of people because the library is kind of a meeting ground for people who might not necessarily read the back pages of the Washington Post, but might pay attention to what the librarian says.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Zoe.
It's interesting stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Zoe, thanks.
Of course, anytime. That's Assistant Washington Editor for The Nation, Zoe Carpenter. You can follow her on Twitter at Zoe S. Carpenter. You can find her online at thenation.com. Libraries. I have a library card. Do you have a library card?
Of course.
No,
yeah,
you
of course.
don't.
Of course I do. Where are my keys? I got it on my keys.
Do you have a library card, Lisa?
Of course I do. On my keys.
Does Jamie have a library card?
I mean, I can't read or write.
Well,
but I do have a library.
That's why you work in radio.
I can rent movies.
I'm Clinton Yates. This is the Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Right now, big banking, software, pharmaceutical, and tobacco corporations are lobbying governments from 12 countries to negotiate the dirtiest deal you've never heard of. There's a reason you haven't heard of the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are some major corporations and government officials that don't want you to know what's in the deal. For one, our food safety standards, environmental protections, and local labor laws could all be threatened under the TPP. We could all be forced to pay significantly more for the medicines we need, and you could be fined or even sent to jail for downloading copyrighted content on the internet. How will they know if you do it? Because your internet service providers could be required to watch your online activity. But that's not the scariest part. The TPP gives corporations the power to sue our government in secret tribunals over any law or regulation they claim affects their expected future profits. Don't believe it? It's already happening. Recently, after our government said an American pharma corporation's drug price-raising patents were not legit, The firm sued Canadian taxpayers for a staggering $500 million. And a U.S. fracking company sued us when the Quebec government put a moratorium on shale gas development to study its impacts. These deals will stop us from making our own common sense laws for fear of lawsuits. Thankfully, not everyone is willing to sign on the dotted line just yet. In fact, most government officials still have no idea what they're even signing on to, for good reason. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans alike are uniting to oppose a fast tracking of the TPP, demanding open debates and negotiations instead. Elected officials in Canada and everywhere should be doing this, and it's our job to make sure they start showing some backbone. Here's the deal. Without a strong public outcry, politicians will only hear the concerns of multinational corporations. And once the TPP is signed, it's here forever. There's no expiration date and no separation clause. This dirty deal has been deliberately branded as a free trade agreement. It is anything but free for people like you and me. And it's not really about trade. It could cost us our internet freedom, labor rights, access to affordable medicine, the safety of our food, and protections that keep our water and air clean. Nobody wants to be struck with a backroom deal we don't want and never voted for. Find out more, speak up, and spread the word.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, and I'm filling in here for Bill Press. So we've had a really nasty story that's been around for the past couple days, which involves the Duggar family, which some of you know from TLC, which once was known as the Learning Channel. Those days are over. And the situation with Jim Bob's son, Josh. Why is Mike Huckabee riding for the Duggars? I don't get this at all.
So this Josh Duggar was sexually assaulting members of his own family, minors.
Yeah.
And he admitted to that, and he was doing this when he was 14, 15, 16 years old. He admitted to it. The story came out. And because Mike Huckabee, they're from Arkansas, the Duggars. Mike Huckabee came out and stood with the Duggar family. He said that this was a lapse in judgment from a young child.
A young child? Oh, I see.
And that he stands with him. He's standing with a child molester. There's no other way to put it.
A young child.
He is supporting a child molester.
Right. But a 12-year-old in Cleveland with a toy gun is menacing.
16 years old. I wonder how quick Huckabee would be to throw other 16-year-olds in jail for lesser offenses.
Mike Huckabee, not a good look.
Horrible look.
Just so you know. We'll be back. I'm Clinton Yates, the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry. hungry for guns.
I understand that crimadvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow, crimadvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
crimadvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
And my name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on Friday, May 29, 2015. I want to thank you all for joining the program. If you're listening on one of your progressive talk stations all over the country, thanks again, as well as on iHeartRadio and the TuneIn app. Of course, you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Also on the Twitter box at BP Show, and of course on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Peter Ogborn's here with us. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Clinton.
How are you?
I'm well. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Elisa Murphy's here behind the boards.
Hey, good morning.
If you give us a phone call at 866-55-PRESS, Jamie Benson will be screening your phone calls, and the president of the Riley Curry fan club, Cyprian Bolding, is handling the video operations. I got to talk about her for a second.
You mean the Queen?
She is the best person in America right now. Did you hear her singing the Big Sean Drake song?
So good.
On the dais the other day?
Right there in front of everybody.
What's going on with her being so awesome? Did you see her doing the two? Look.
She's adorable.
She's adorable.
Way cooler than I am.
So many levels. And listen, look, when I was a kid, I presume I was a rambunctious pile of mess.
Sure.
She is at least composed enough to understand the big stage, which is, oh, hey, look, there's cameras.
Oh.
Let me wave at you people and sing my favorite song.
Yeah.
What more can you ask out of a 2-year-old?
But Clinton, don't you think it's distracting for all those other reporters there that are there to do their jobs?
You've got to keep the sanctity.
Question.
You've got to maintain the sanctity of the post game.
Yeah.
According to Skip Bayless, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's insane.
Look, Riley Curry is an American hero.
Yep.
And a treasure.
Yes.
For all children to try to be. And I would watch endless programming of the Curry family in reality television. I really would.
I would too.
I just don't get how anybody has a huge problem with her because, hello, she's a cute kid and she knows what's going on.
Steph Curry's wife is on Vine and she has all these old Vine videos.
Yeah.
Of just them at home. And I'm just saying, adopt me.
Adorbs. Right. What am I
Adopt
doing?
me.
What am I doing?
You guys have it all figured out.
I need to hang out with the Currys more often.
Yeah.
Del Curry's awesome. Del's wife is awesome. Steph is awesome. Steph's kid is awesome. Steph's wife is awesome. The Warriors are awesome.
Yeah.
The nation is rooting for the Warriors to win the NBA Finals. Anyway, we'll get plenty to get to, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Clinton, when I tell you or when I ask you who is the most profitable movie producer of all time, who is the most successful movie producer of all time, who would you think that?
Lucas?
George Lucas is on the list.
What about Spielberg?
Spielberg is also on the list. Michael Bay is also on the list, but none of them are number one. We have a new number one movie producer of all time when it comes to highest gross, and that person is Stan Lee.
Really?
The legend, because he is a producer for like
So he's making that cash for
all of the
those.
Marvel movies.
Good for him.
This is how much money Stan Lee has grossed at the box office. Total domestic gross here in America, $6.8 billion.
Whoa.
That's what he's produced. $6.8 billion with a B.
Wow.
Spielberg is number 2. He has a gross of 6.76. Now, Jurassic World is coming out.
Oh, that's true.
So Spielberg is going to take over number 1.
You going to see that movie?
I will go see that movie.
I will absolutely.
I will
go
go
see
see that
crazy.
on opening weekend.
Yeah.
So Spielberg is going to take back over number 1, but then there are a couple Marvel movies in the pipeline, including Ant-Man, which could be, I don't think Ant-Man is going to make Jurassic World money, but it's going to be a Stan
push
Lee.
him up. Yeah.
So,
Stan Lee. Good for him.
$6.8 billion.
That's a lot of cash.
You know, marijuana is legal in a couple of states here in America, so if you are of age and you fit the criteria, you are able to go and buy and smoke your marijuana, unless you are a federal employee. Yesterday, Catherine Archuleta, director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, made clear that even if you live in Colorado or Washington or one of these states that allows it, you are not allowed to use marijuana as an employee of the federal government. Quote, federal...
That sucks.
Right? Quote, federal law on marijuana remains unchanged. Marijuana is categorized as a controlled substance. Thus, knowing or intentional marijuana possession is illegal, even if an individual has no intent to manufacture, distribute, or dispense marijuana.
One day when all this crap goes away, people are going to look at our era and be like, you all were the biggest losers on earth. What were you thinking?
Come on, guys.
And I wonder if they're going to up the random drug testing because of all of that in specific states.
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
And we go to Madison, New Jersey, where a fight broke out over a piece of sausage. A man attacked another person because
so to speak.
He ate his last piece of sausage, and the man attacked the man who ate the sausage. The man who attacked is named Thomas Bacon.
No way.
He is 19, so bacon beefs over sausage.
Oh my goodness.
Is your headline for that story.
We need to get out of this segment.
Bye, everyone.
Please stop. Shut it down.
Reason I saved that for last.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. All right. Switching to matters of men doing very interesting things with money. We have on the line policy writer for the Boston Globe, Evan Horowitz. How are you, Evan?
I'm doing very well. Nobody stole my sausage this morning.
Nobody stole your sausage. That is a great segue. So, Joseph S. Blatter, known to most people as Sepp, spoke this morning in front of the Congress. I was listening to it. He's actually far more eloquent in French than he is in English. Give us the latest on what is happening with the FIFA elections, and we'll get further into the basics now, but a quick update on what's happening.
They're holding them is the big story. It doesn't matter that many FIFA executives have been indicted and are facing jail time. They're still going ahead with presidential elections, and, well, more than that, Sepp Blatter's probably going to win.
Yeah, so most people... as somebody who is, I'll say this very plainly, a hardcore soccer fan, I understand the ins and outs of this, but most people don't necessarily. Explain to people what exactly the beef is with Sepp.
Oh, well, the beef with Sepp is that he's been at the head of this deeply corrupt organization for 20 years, and he rules it like his own personal fiefdom, doling out money, using largesse to control the world of international soccer, preventing any rivals from really challenging him for the presidency or for control. He's the great autocrat of international soccer.
Did you read the entire indictment? I read it.
I read the bulk of the indictment, yeah.
It was very boring, but it has a lot of interesting tales about how people move money around. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand what's at stake here, but what's mainly the and if you can go into more detail about this, the main issue is over the sale of broadcast and media rights.
Yeah, so, well, think of it this way. FIFA is an organization that deals mostly with the member states. So they're an international group, but they deal with like the country of Benin or Togo or Vanuatu as much as they deal with the United States or France or Spain. And all of their votes, or many of their votes, are set up so that every country has one vote. It doesn't matter that there's a lot more money in the U.S. or a lot more people. Vanuatu gets one vote, and the U.S. gets one vote. So if you want to rig an election, you can go to the little states and offer them some money, a couple of $1 million, and they say, yes, thank you very much. We'll happily vote for you for a couple of $1 million. And this way, you can hand this money over, in briefcases, as they sometimes do, or in envelopes, as they sometimes do, or you can make it big in public and pretend that the money is going to build new soccer stadiums. But at the end of the day, it's all, it's all money that's being used as bribes and kickbacks to maintain control. Now, that's sort of the countries. On the broadcasting side, yeah, that's what FIFA does. They don't care about soccer so much as they care about the business of soccer. And that means television rights, and it means sponsorships. So the other part of the bribing is if you're a broadcasting company and you want to broadcast the World Cup, you don't just submit an open bid like, hey, we'll pay, whatever it is, we'll pay $700 million to broadcast this. You have to submit an open bid, and then it looks like you have to also hand over that envelope or that briefcase full of cash to get your bid accepted.
We're talking with Evan Horowitz of the Boston Globe. He's a policy writer discussing the situation with FIFA and what's happening with World Soccer, also known as WOSO on the internet, if you really follow this kind of stuff. People want to know, is this going to affect anything about the World Cups that have been granted to Qatar and Russia? What do you think?
It's possible, but it's going to be a separate investigation. So basically, the indictments that came out of the U.S. the other day, they have to deal with graphs going back to 1991, but they don't deal with the selection of the most recent World Cup selections. They deal with events up to say 2011 or so. But the Swiss have opened an investigation into the selection of Russia and Qatar to host the 2018 and 2022 games. And again, this is one of these issues where corruption is widely known. It's not like the Swiss are opening an investigation because there might be corruption. The stories abound, and they're well documented, and there does seem to have been vote trading, and money does seem to have traded hands. It's all a question of getting enough evidence to prove it in court, and that's the trick.
What do you think happens next here, Evan?
I love this story. I think it grows and grows and grows. I talk to any number of sort of law sports folks, and they're kind of split over why the U.S. didn't get Sepp Blatter. I think ultimately it'll be a strategic play. That is, they've gotten enough of his underlings, and they'll get some of those people to turn. And once they turn, Sepp Blatter will go down. That's speculative, but that's my best guess.
All right. Well, thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That is Evan Horowitz. He is a policy writer for the Boston Globe. You can find him on Twitter at Globe Horowitz, and of course his work is online at bostonglobe.com. I have many more thoughts. About the Sepp Blatter FIFA situation. This is very, very, very much in my personal wheelhouse about my interests. And I will get back to them after the break.
Let's get into it.
That's called a tease. This is radio. I'm a professional. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. All right, let's get right to it. Here's the deal with FIFA. FIFA is an international organization that, as we just talked with our esteemed guest, Evan Horowitz, before, they control basically what happens with everything concerning the statutes, the way that the entire world's game runs from an official standpoint. They deal with member organizations that involve continental organizations that in turn involve regional organizations that in turn involve national organizations. SEP is at the top of this large scheme. Sepp Blatter came on in 98, I want to say, which was right when global soccer was on the cusp of a huge blow up. Now, this is before the women's national team first won in China, so that part of things was just growing. That happened in 1999, and this is really before the American market came on as a large consumer base, before it was on as a sort of a large participation base, but people weren't necessarily buying into the U.S. as a global, not power, but broker, if you will. So here's the problem. It's 10 or 12 guys that are all working with each other to trade money so that they can all get more rich and cash in on what is the popularity of the game that has legitimately grown incredibly under Sepp's watch. And so that's where it's very easy to just say, oh, this guy is the worst, and oh, he's stealing all this money, and oh, how could all this be happening? But he's doing one part of the job very, very well, which is growing the world's game. You can say what you want about, oh, man, soccer was always so. No, it wasn't. It just wasn't that big 15 years ago on a global scale. And that's why this is so annoying as a soccer fan, because you're like, man, this guy seems like he's evil, but he's also a dude that was just plain smart enough to find a way to squeeze every dollar for his cronies out of this. And I don't see Sepp Blatter getting caught up in any of this at all, because it's a scenario where he didn't necessarily take all of the money for himself, but he's been at the helm when an environment has been created in which this kind of corruptive, racketeering type behavior was allowed, encouraged, and was the proper way to do business. And that's where this becomes a very difficult and interesting conversation. I want to go to a couple of things that he said. He talked about what it's like in dragging FIFA into a quagmire.
We cannot allow the reputation of football and FIFA to be dragged through the mud any longer.
He's right.
It has to stop here and now.
He's right. And he's put himself in a position where the plausible deniability is just enough there. Just enough. And don't get me wrong, I do not like this guy. But, you know, like I said, I've read through that whole indictment, and it's 150 pages of guys setting up contracts and shell corporations. So basically, let's just say the five of us were in this room and we knew that, you know, we could control the broadcast rights to a soccer tournament. All right, Jamie's got, you know, a newspaper company or a television company that wants to broadcast the rights. Elisa's got a merchandising company that wants to make all the stuff. You've got one of the television stations that wants to get involved as well, and SIP has one of the radio stations that wants to get involved. You pay me, and then you go out and make your money on all the people that are involved, and everybody else just shows up, but it's like, oh, hey, by the way, no, we're doing this, we all get richer. Meantime, the game is growing. The game is growing because it's popular, athletes are getting better, and, you know, the distribution channels are actively being engaged. But at the same time, it's this level of scumbaggery that people don't appreciate about the game. And, you know, whether it's match-fixing allegations that are rampant all across the globe because people are gambling on things and people believe that syndicates are fixing matches all over the nation and all over the globe, who knows? But what's really, really weird about this, and I think it's really hard for people to see, is that for as bad a reputation as Sepp Blatter has, and as bad a reputation as FIFA has, their basic core tenet of growing the game has been absolutely successful. And there's just no way to really deny that. There really just isn't, and that's actually kind of frightening.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. So
that's one of the best breakdowns of this whole situation I've heard.
That's just all there is to it.
Yeesh.
Scumbags doing their job and getting rich while they're doing it. Anyway, I'm Clinton
Wheel in the
Yates.
sky keeps on turning.
Exactly. We'll be back. It's the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What up, kiddos? I'm Clinton Yates. I write for The Washington Post, filling in for Bill here. It's Friday, which means I'm happy. I'm wearing sweatpants/sweat shorts. On the line, we have with us Lenore Eskale, who is the founder of the Free Range Kid movement. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you in your sweat shorts. That's a new word for me.
Oh, yeah? That's new for you?
Sweat shorts? Yeah, I never heard it.
Yeah, well, they're shorts that are made out of sweatpants material. It's
okay.
Pretty basic stuff. You should try them out. They're very good. So,
I shall.
Tell me about the Free Range Kids movement. Again, we're here in D.C., so this has come to our proverbial front door here in Silver Spring, but I want you to give us and the listeners some background on sort of where this started and what it's all about.
Okay, this all began 7 years ago now when I let my 9-year-old ride the subway here in New York City by himself. And like you, I'm a newspaper columnist. At the time, I was at the New York Sun, which doesn't exist anymore. But I wrote a column called Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone. And 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and, for contrast, NPR, defending my decision, and my husband's decision, too, although you never hear about him, to let my son do something where I couldn't see him. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. It turns out that not only was it terrible that I let him ride the subway, and it's subterranean, there's rats, there's terrorists, whatever, but the point is that you're not allowed to let your children out of your sight anymore in modern-day America. That's considered bad parenting, because the assumption is the second your eyes literally are not on your child's head, they will be murdered.
Let's get philosophical with this.
Oh, yeah.
Why do people think that, and who is pushing this
agenda?
Yeah, where does that come from?
Where is the against on this? Yeah.
What's so interesting is that wrote a whole book about this and have been thinking about it for 7 years since. I think there's like a bunch of reasons that we're way more afraid than our parents were. You know, our parents let us walk to school, and they didn't go through this mental thing before they let us out the door, going like, oh, I'd love to let her walk to school, but what about, you know, Eitan Patz and J.C. Duggar and Elizabeth Smart and, Maddie McCann. And I think the reason that parents do this now, that they have all these pictures of horrible tragedies popping up in their brains, is that is how we've literally been taught to think. I call it worst first thinking. If you're not coming up with the worst case scenario first before you let your kid do anything, you're not considered a good parent anymore. And that's actually why like 19 states now have laws against children waiting in cars, even for 5 minutes, even for 1 minute. California, no minutes. It's because somehow if you leave your child doing anything unsupervised, the people who are onlooking, the people who are making the laws, and certainly the people who are calling 911 on you, they see that the kid is fine. You know, there's the kid walking home from the park in Silver Spring. There's the kid, sleeping in her car seat or reading, a board book while they wait for their mom to come back from the pharmacy. But they leap to, but what if they were kidnapped? What if somebody smashed the window open? What if a car leapt over the curb and mowed these children down? I was talking about this. I'm the PTA president at my kid's school, and I was talking about this.
Oh, you are?
The other day. That's how terrible a mom I am. I actually am. If you Google America's Worst Mom, I'm there for 77 Google pages. But there I was running the PTA the other day, and we were having this discussion, and this woman said to me about the Métis family being arrested or being investigated for letting their 10 and 6-year-olds walk home from the park. Well, but what about if there's a sex trafficker and he wanted the 6-year-old? The 10-year-old couldn't stop him. So that's a very specific scenario that is running through her head that she thinks of as so plausible and possible and likely as to make the parents evil. So it's like if you're letting your kid walk outside, it's as if you have thrown them in the tiger pit at the zoo, and you'll be very lucky if they get out alive.
You use the term letting your kids do things alone.
Yeah.
How about when parents used to force their kids to do things alone? Because that's how you learn about the world.
Go outside and play.
Right.
Go outside and play.
Do not come back
I want to see you for an
until
hour.
the sun goes down. Or, no, I'm not driving your butt to school. Get on the bus and get on the train and get back, or else we're going to have a problem. That's how it was for me. At least. Yes, I took the train to school for like 10 years, starting in like 5th grade. It wasn't a big deal. And all of my friends did it as well, and it stuns me that now people are so, it's not even just the worry to me. It's the sanctimony that comes along with it, where it's, looking down your nose at those that don't have the time and the inclination to be with their child at every waking second. Some people don't have that choice because they got to be at work or they got to be doing something else. There's sometimes a very real reason why people are not spending every waking hour with their children. What do you think about this?
Well, I think, of course, it's impossible to spend every waking hour with your child. Yesterday, I put up an ad on my site that I found just abhorrent. It was for Subaru, And it said, and it showed pictures of the kid in the back seat. It said, my child grew up in the back seat, which of course has horrible connotations. But basically, they were saying, like, look, this is where she spoke her first words and made a best friend, and basically spent every second of her childhood in the back seat. She made up games. She loved it there. And it's like, that to me is kidnapping both generations, because the child is growing up in a space larger than not larger than a closet, right? They are being transported like a criminal to and from secure locations. And then who else is stuck? It's the parent. And you're right, not everybody has the time. Not everybody even has a car big enough for the regulation car seats. If you have 3 kids and you're trying to cram 3 of those gigantic bulbous car seats in the back, you're going to have to get a minivan or a Peter Pan bus, frankly, to fit those things. And so it is a weird model of parenting that we are saying is normal and good when so many people can't do it, and doing it doesn't help the kids.
We're talking with Lenore Eskale of the Free Range Kid movement. You can find her on Twitter at Free Range Kids. Now, there's as much as there's the social concept here, there's also the legal factor.
Yes.
And the situation that we ran into in Silver Spring, which was these 2 people, this family's kids got were nearly taken away because.
Well, yeah. Let me talk about that.
Yeah, break down that is from a legal standpoint about what happened to those 2 parents in Silver Spring.
Okay, the parents let the children walk home. The first time that I've been talking to the parents for 4 years, so there have been some other little run-ins with concerned neighbors and people checking on them. But most recently in December, they let their kids walk home from a park. A concerned bystander saw them because, my God, there's children outside. That's not supposed to happen,
God
right?
Forbid, yeah.
Right. And were they actually playing in a park? Those parks are there for beauty. Nobody's supposed to swing on those swings. So somebody called the cops. The cops came over. The cops brought the children home, even though they were perfectly content and safe to do it on their own. And their father, at the time their mom was out of town, the father believed in them. And then a whole rigmarole ensued where the cops said, you must wait for CPS. CPS came and forced the dad, who's from the Soviet Union, who thought he left this behind, to sign what they called a safety plan, which promised that for the next 48 hours before he had the next contact with CPS, he would not let them out of his sight, which, of course, is what we're talking about. That's become the norm. You cannot let your children out of your sight. Something's wrong with that, supposedly. So they did as told, and when they were investigated, originally CPS found them, this is the Orwellian part, and I think you probably have heard this already, they were found guilty of unsubstantiated neglect. So it doesn't mean anything. Basically meant they were in legal limbo. In the meantime, about a month later, they let their kids do the same thing because their safety plan was for those 48 hours, and now they're allowed to live their lives as free American citizens, or so they thought. And the kids were once again walking home. Once again, somebody sees them outside. It's like seeing an escaped gazelle from the zoo. What is this thing doing out here? Since when are children on the sidewalk? Calls CPS, calls 911. 911 gets the cops there. The cops pick the kids up. Want us to take you home? Yes, we do. And then they realize, oh, my God, it's these kids again. What are we supposed to do? These little recidivists, they're playing outside again.
Recidivists.
Right. And so in the end, they kept the kids in a cop car for 2 hours. Finally, they brought them to the crisis center, crisis completely created by the government, and eventually called the parents who have been frantically wondering where their kids are. And 5 hours later, the children and the parents are reunited. Now, what happened this week is that the parents had appealed the original decision about that original walk, the quote-unquote guilty of unsubstantiated neglect, and they were now found not guilty of any kind of neglect, which is a great triumph, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with politics. But what we have to do, and the reason you've been hearing about all these stories over the past couple of years, the story of the woman down in South Carolina who let her 9-year-old play in the park on a sunny summer day and was hauled into court and then jail for letting her play outside. Jail first, not court. Right. And some of these other cases of parents who let their kids wait in the car literally for 2 minutes, sometimes 4 minutes, while they run a brief errand, and they're hauled into court or they're found guilty of negligence, is because I've been highlighting them. I highlight them on my site because I hear from all these parents, and I also put them on Reason.com, where I'm a columnist. And so I put these into the public's discourse because we we can change the laws. The laws are made by lawmakers, and we vote for the lawmakers. And what we have to start doing is saying, wait a minute, we don't want the government telling us, I wouldn't do it that way, so I'm going to arrest you. You know, Every parent is doing something that another parent says, like, I wouldn't feed her that. I wouldn't put him in that coat. You know, it's too cold, it's too hot, whatever. But you don't want the government stepping in unless there is something so obvious and immediate and hugely threatening. You know, there's no food in the refrigerator, and the child is left at home for 3 days. The kid is beaten. The kid is given drugs. The kid is pimped out. Yes, step in. Help that poor child. But if I'm letting my kid walk 3 blocks and you wouldn't do it until the kid is 11 and I'm doing it when he's 9, big deal. Back off. So what we have to do is demand of our states and eventually of our federal government of saying that what I call the Free-Range Kids Bill of Rights, which is one sentence long, and it is this. Our children have the right to some unsupervised time, and we have the right to give it to them without getting arrested.
Thank you, Lenore.
There you go.
Great. All right. Have a good one. That's Lenore Eskale. You're welcome. She's the founder of the Free Range Kid Movement. You can find her on Twitter at Free Range Kids. We're going to talk a lot more about this. Peter's going to tell dad stories, and I'm going to tell stories when I was a kid. If you want to give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. How do you let your kids roam? Where the wild things are or not? I'm Clinton Yates.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000. I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name's Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. We're talking parenting. Give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Got a quick story for us, Peter?
All right, so I am not as far, I don't go as far as the free-range parents who will, like, let their kids just, walk wherever. And I'm not saying that they are doing it recklessly.
Right.
I just like to keep a closer eye on my kids just until they can prove that they're a little more responsible. But we live in a great neighborhood. We live out in the suburbs, and we have a couple of great parks nearby. There's a soccer field right behind our house. They get to they know their boundaries.
Yeah.
They get to go play. But last year, there was a day that the kids went out to go play, just the two of them, and they met some friends up at the park, and they were. This is maybe 100 yards from my house.
Okay.
Maybe. So, at some point, somebody sees the kids playing by themselves with no adults around. And my kids are 10 and 7, so they're like 9 and 6 at the time.
Right.
And they call the police. And so the cops show up, and they talk to my kids, and the kids take them back to my house. And the cops showed up at my doorstep. My kids, by the way, are screaming. My youngest is like screaming, crying. He's freaking out.
Because, the police.
Look to the police.
Right.
What are y'all doing out here? Where are your parents? So I get to the door, and they tell me what's going on. They're like, you shouldn't let your kids play by themselves out here. I said, what are you talking about? They're in a park.
Why the hell do you think I paid all this money to live in the burbs?
I can, right? I can see the park from my house. What are you talking about? And he goes, well, you shouldn't let them just roam around. I said, they weren't just roaming around. I said, I got heated with this police officer. My kid's crying.
Right.
I'm upset. Oh,
Not
it's
good.
It's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
It's
too much.
I'm annoyed at the police, but I'm really pissed at the person who saw kids playing outside of the park.
And decided to call somebody.
We need to call somebody
That's
about
craziness.
this. This is crazy.
You're right. 866-55-PRESS. Luke in Chicago. What's up, dude?
Hi there. All this talk of free-range parenting and letting kids do their thing by themselves reminds me of the first psych class I ever took, and I question whether anyone in America that makes laws has ever taken a psych class. But children, when they're developing, according to Erickson, which is a pretty solid theory, sometime before they're 10, I can't remember exactly when, they have this stage where it's autonomy versus dependence. There's this huge struggle for them where they either figure out how to learn and do things by themselves and initiate things and kind of handle themselves a bit, or they become very dependent and they struggle extremely for the remainder of their time here to do much of anything by themselves.
No, it's good. It's a good point. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. And I just want to get to these phone calls. Thank you for the phone call, Luke. But that's a good point. At a certain age, you got to grow up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When I was taking the train to school when I was in 6th grade, when kids made fun of my shoes, sometimes we'd have to scrap. And you know what? I learned some boundaries, which is, number one, don't make fun of people if you don't plan on getting punched in the face. Right. And number two, sometimes you got to learn how to defend yourself. And I'm not saying that violence is the answer. I'm not a violent person. I'm just saying there was a very specific social factor that was led that I wouldn't have been led to if I was not by myself.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
I don't want to cast a wide net on an entire generation of people, but I have met a lot of people who come from a certain generation who don't know how to do things for themselves.
It's ridiculous. Let's get to some more of these phone calls. Robert in South Carolina. What's up, Robert?
Yes, I'd like to know how old must a child be to no longer require parents' protection?
I go with double digits. I mean, to me, thank you, Robert. I mean, that's when I can remember. When I was 10 is when my parents started letting me just basically stay home alone.
There are laws about this, right?
Yeah.
So in the state of Maryland where I live, a child has to be at least 8 years old before they can stay at home by themselves.
Okay.
8. That's what
that
it
seems
be.
Low to me.
It's a little low.
Yeah.
I think it's a little low. But, we have a 10-year-old. He stays at home by himself all the time. He has a phone, so he can text with us and call us in case of an emergency. He's responsible enough to, get himself dressed and things like that. So, yeah, I think double digits is a good gauge.
Yeah, that's what it started for me. Anyway, all right, that was a lovely conversation. Parent your kids, people. And parenting doesn't always mean being around them.
That's right.
All right? It means letting them know what's right and what's wrong, so that if they're in situations where you are not there, they have something to fall back on as a useful tool to make decisions.
That's it.
I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Bill Press Show. Hi.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
And my name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. Peter, what's the president doing today?
Very, very light schedule for the president today. 9:30 a.m. is the in-call pool time. 10 o'clock, the president and the vice president receive the presidential daily briefing in the Oval Office. And the next thing on the schedule is 3:35, where the president meets with Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Presumably FIFA will be the topic.
Here and watch a little footy
there. Yeah.
Sidebar: it's a little crazy that Loretta Lynch is the one that's at the helm of this. Like, apparently there were meetings in Queens about these sort of money handoffs. Gotta love Loretta Lynch.
And this FIFA thing just kind of followed her into office. She was after it.
But she worked on it, I believe, when she was at wherever she was before.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. She brought it with her to the Justice Department. It came with her, which is pretty amazing. There will be a press briefing today at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So there you go. That's it. That's all he's done.
All right. Well, very well. It's a bummer that this is really going to foreshadow or overshadow the Women's World Cup, which is coming up. That sucks. Anyway, all right. I'm Clinton Yates. Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. They barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father, while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back, stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name's Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. It's Friday, May 29th, 2015. I want to thank you all for tuning in, whether it's on TawkrTV, Free Speech TV, one of your progressive talk stations, or iHeartRadio or the TuneIn app. Thank you very much. Peter Ogburn's here. Hello, Peter.
Clinton, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too.
Thank you for coming in.
Of course. Lisa Murphy's here across the boards.
Hey, good morning.
Jamie Benson's taking your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. And Cyprian Bowling is making us all look good, operating the video string. I saw a movie last week, Peter.
Yeah?
Yep, it involved a lot of singing.
So it wasn't Mad Max?
No.
Did you go see Pitch Perfect 2?
Absolutely saw Pitch Perfect 2, and I enjoyed every single second of it.
The loud groan from Cyprian in the other room.
It was a fantastic movie.
Really?
And I'm not one of these people that is hyper devoted to the brand or the source material. There are some people that are taking Pitch Perfect way too seriously. Like,
yes.
It was a movie that took a lot of people by storm, and they were devotees to it. But to me, first of all, I saw it a month ago, so I was not really... I didn't have 2 years of build-up to the sequel.
Right, you weren't.
You know what I mean? I only saw it because I wanted to see the second one, and it looked like a fun thing to get in on, and whatever. It's still a movie about a cappella groups. I'm not going nuts over that. But I saw the second one, and it's real good.
Really?
How about there's a Fall Out Boy T-Pain mashup?
Really?
That is incredible.
Oh, no.
I was blown away. Yeah, no, it's good, and if you enjoy that genre, which is doesn't take itself too seriously, still's got some pretty raunchy jokes, but isn't that far out of line necessarily, and some decent songs, and you're not too cool for it, it's a good movie.
I think the problem is that I consider myself too cool for it.
I don't know that there's anybody in your life that you would care to see this movie with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So just go see it by myself.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is you won't see the movie.
Right.
But it's like
let's be
your
clear.
kids aren't old enough. I don't know if you probably go with her. I mean, it's a good... I enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But,
all right.
Then again, that's just me.
All right.
So we're going to get to many other things involving words. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed, just a couple of other stories. Making news, I'm not sure whether or not to call this story poetic or ironic. A Canadian by the name of Edgar Nurnberg is on the board of directors for Big Valley's Creation Science Museum. It is a museum devoted to creationism. Stick with me here.
Okay.
The whole point of this museum is to prove and to show that the Earth is only about 6,000 years old and that humans and dinosaurs coexisted. It all comes from the Bible, Clinton. Didn't you know that?
Oh, my God. Please get that.
This is where the story takes a turn. Mr. Nurnberg was excavating and renovating his basement in Calgary in Canada. And Calgary, and he found a 60-million-year-old fossil.
What?
A fish fossil. There's a picture of it. I'll tweet it out from our Twitter account at BP Show.
Well, I guess that blows his little theory out of the water.
Right? What happens when you're a creationist?
That was a good pun, too.
And you find right. When you're a creationist and you find a 60-million-year-old fossil.
That's a real dagger.
Right? Well, he says that his faith has not been shook at all.
That's not faith anymore.
I know.
The whole point of faith is believing in something that's not real. When you find something that's real, the faith component goes out of the window.
Here's his quote. No, it hasn't changed my mind. We all have the same evidence, and it's just a matter of how you interpret it. There's no dates stamped on these things.
Wow.
End stupid quote.
Yeah. That guy's a maniac.
To Edgar, sorry, buddy.
You lose.
You lose, sir. You lose. Serial, the podcast that took everybody by storm last year, is coming back. We knew it was coming back, but now we have some dates. We know what's happening. And in fact, we found out that they are taping both Season 2 and Season 3 of Serial at the same time.
What a world we live in.
Right?
Podcast
We are anticipating the second season of a podcast.
I'm down with that. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But that's wild.
Sarah Koenig said that we should expect Season 2 a little bit later on this year, and Season 3 will be coming out early next year.
Wow.
So they're hoping to delay the drag of how much time between seasons.
Good for them.
That's exciting. I'm excited about that.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited
The
about
podcast
that.
world making these moves.
And one final story, 19 Kids and Counting, the show about the Duggars and the 19 kids, has been removed from Hulu. Now, it took TLC a little bit of time to get it off the air. In fact, when the allegations first came out about Josh Duggar and the sexual, I'll put it lightly, sexual misconduct that he had engaged in, they actually were in the middle of a 19 Kids and Counting marathon that they had to take off. But now they've said the show is canceled, it's done, and Hulu yesterday made it official. They will no longer have it in their streaming library at all, so they are just wiping the show off the face of it.
Smart decision.
Very smart decision.
All right. Thank you, Peter. All right. On the line, we have my friend, writer and editor for the Washington Post, Joeheim, Joe Heim. Hello, Joe.
Good morning, Clinton. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So you've been hanging out with the twitching freaks all week, as they are known in some circles.
No, I was out of the office all week. I wasn't.
No. That was funny. That was funny. Joe's got zings. So tell me about this life. I've never been to the spelling bee competition. A lot of people watch it on TV. The popularity is on a totally different level than it was, let's just say 5 years ago. What was it? What was the vibe like this week at the entire event?
It was great. I mean, I'd never covered it before, and it's just you sort of just imagine like an incredibly kind, nice group of people. I mean, this place is like the sort of opposite of FIFA. They just it's just tons of kids in there, and they've all worked really hard to get there. And it's sort of a cynicism buster for those of us who are, just get cynical about different things that we see year after year. Spending some time there it was actually pretty enlightening, and I felt pretty good about the whole event. So, it was crazy last night. They had a pretty historic night. We had co-champions for the second year in a row, and one of the girls, Vanya, who won, her sister had won about 4 or 5 years ago. So they're the first siblings who've taken on the spelling bee.
A dynasty is born.
A dynasty, although it ends with her because they're just 2 kids in the family. So maybe they'll adopt. I don't know.
Huh. So I envisioned a scenario that had a lot of stage moms and a lot of coach dads that were kind of freaking out over their kids doing this, that, and the third. But it was actually nice.
Yeah, I really didn't see that, and by the time these kids have gotten here, they've gone through a few B's, And I'm sure that there are parents who are sort of taskmasters and maybe do fit that role. But really, what I saw were most parents were just saying, look, they got here, we just want them to have fun, and the kids, and a lot of the kids seem to have that same same approach. There are probably a few that seemed sort of unduly nervous, but I mean, you can understand it being in front of all those kids and being on TV. It'd be nerve-wracking. I wouldn't do it.
Right. So we had co-champions for the second year in a row, but that's also the only 2 times it's happened. What are the sort of rules and regulations around this? I mean, why has this happened 2 years in a row? And is there any sort of displeasure around the fact that...
Well, it has happened before. It's actually the 5th time. That
my bad. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there is something. Both of the kids who won are sort of B veterans. So Vanya was her 5th time coming to the B, and her sister. I mean, I think her dad said that they've been attended the B one of the kids for 10 of the last 11 years.
Oh wow.
And Gokul, the other winner, he finished 3rd last year, and I think this might be his 4th trip as well. So, I mean, there's some thought, I mean, or at least I think that maybe they should limit the number of times you can attend the B. I think that you do really build up an advantage over the years. But, they're not really looking for my opinion on this.
So, I mean, okay, so here's also what I want to know. What is how do I explain this? The kids are obviously rather smart.
Right.
And a lot of the adults there may or not be that smart. Now, you're a dad, and we've been talking about various kids things here and there on the show today. What is the sort of smart aleck factor that exists with kids there? Because I can imagine that you're walking around with 50 to 100 kids that pretty much have their lives totally under control and are doing it the right way. What is that like? I
don't know. I mean, it's sort of as you started out pointing out, there's a heavy nerd factor. There's really no way around it. So yeah, these kids they are smart, and they'll like to try and make jokes with the judges, and but they're 13, 14, 12-year-old kids. That's going to be a tough crowd, no matter what setting you're in. So they were all having a good time. I mean, for me, it was I have 2 young kids, and so I just could come home every night and shame them into their about their spelling abilities.
You got to do it.
Yeah. Just keep pointing these kids up and saying, this is what you're failing against. So,
right. One of the stories you wrote is about how Indian Americans have dominated this competition for several years, and there's been various abuses on social media. But tell me a little bit about the background of that story and how that's sort of unfolded over the past decade or so.
Right. So, Indian Americans make up about a little under 1% of the U.S. population, and they make up about 25% of the B contestants. There are 283 contestants came to D.C. this past week for the contest. Then there are 10 finalists in there, and 7 of them were Indian Americans. So 70% of the finalists. I mean, it's the last 15 years. I think now they've won 11 out of the last 15 years. And the last 8 years in a row. And, as you said, there's some backlash on Twitter, but, Twitter's kind of a cesspool when it comes. You can always find someone criticizing somebody on Twitter. I don't know. It's sort of a remarkable streak, and, there are reasons for it that people have tried to explain. I mean, most of these kids, their parents are 1st or 2nd generation immigrants who are professionals. Both parents work. They're sort of really driven, and education is a big focus for them. So, but that's also true of a lot of the other parents of the rest of the kids. So it doesn't quite explain it. There is a secondary B circuit for Indian American kids or South Asian kids, so they get more experience in those Bs. So there are different factors, and everyone also just points to hard work. But I'm not convinced that they necessarily work harder than the rest of the kids, although maybe I'm wrong about that. Right. But it's certainly an impressive streak.
All right, here's the last thing I'll ask you, Joe. Did the kids who won Did they say anything about their futures? I always wonder about sort of what life is like when you're that age and you achieve something and you're so sort of, I don't want to say famous, but accomplished. Did any of these kids ever talk about what they want to do, specifically the winners, sort of with the rest of their lives? Because obviously you can't make a living spelling words.
Right. I don't know that last night either of them said. I mean, they're also, the one thing about these two that won, they've been there so many times, they're extremely sort of polished in terms of what they say to reporters and just publicly, and they sort of extol the virtues of hard work and how they're competing against a dictionary and not each other. So it's almost like talking to a pro athlete after a few games. I mean, one of my favorite people that I talked to in the past week was a guy who won in 2003, I think, 2002, who's now a professional poker player and a very successful one. But that's probably out of the norm for. I would say that's almost entirely out of the norm. But so they'll probably do whatever they want to do.
Right. All right, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
All right, man.
Thanks
Get back to the
on.
twitching freaks. The ones we work with. No. All right. I'll see you later, Joe. Appreciate it. That's Joe Heim. He's a writer and editor for the Washington Post. You can find him on Twitter at Joe Heim. Joe's a good guy. He's also a soccer fan as well, which is a sidebar. I'm Clinton Yates. When we get back, we will be spelling these words.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, GoodWeave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the GoodWeave label, companies agreed not to employ children. GoodWeave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, GoodWeave helps them.
2 years ago, a GoodWeave inspector named Jonah found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Jonah put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Jonah took me to Humorous, a home for rescued carpet kids run by GoodWeave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by GoodWeave. And because you chose the GoodWeave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with GoodWeave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the GoodWeave label.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name's Clinton Yates. We're talking, oh, by the way, you spell that CLINTON, We are talking spelling bee stuff today.
Can you use that in a sentence?
Yes. Clinton Yates is the host of The Bill Press Show today.
There you go.
On Friday. That's how I used it in a sentence. We just got through talking with Joe Heim, my colleague at the Post, about sort of what it was like covering the experience. We also happen to have a couple people here in studio who have had some experience in the bee circuit.
That's right.
We will get into
former beeman.
We will get into these stories. Well, let's just say right now.
Let's do it.
So, ladies first, Elisa, tell us in all its glory your bee story.
So it was a pretty big state.
Monster state.
And I was in the 5th grade, and I got all the way to state. The losing word was mayonnaise. I lost to a condiment.
Wow.
Which is horrible.
What'd you do? You only put one N in mayonnaise?
One N. And on top of it all, I was raised on Miracle Whip. So I'd never gone into the fridge and actually seen mayonnaise. So, and you know what? I'm from Canada, where I grew up speaking French originally. So I should have known that.
Right.
So, I still have that listed on my resume as one of my faults.
Family shame, alas.
So,
Peter?
In the state of South Carolina, I was the state spelling bee champion for a couple of years, actually.
Oh, right. The plot thickens.
But I finally went out. I lost on 2 words, basically, because it was a double elimination drawn here. So I lost on shellac, which I put a K on the end of, and there was not a K on the end of shellac.
Okay.
And then I lost on, and I will never misspell this word ever again, Duchess.
Duchess.
Ah.
Put a T in Duchess.
Duchess does not have a T.
No T in Duchess. No T in Duchess.
Huh.
And that was the 4th grade that I
okay.
Or the 5th grade. That was the 5th grade that I lost on Duchess.
Yeah, spelling bees are hard. I remember we used to do the geography bee at my school, and that was always like, there was a certain cachet that came to like winning the GOB at school, because it was like, this isn't just spelling, fam. I know what I'm actually talking about. You know what I'm saying?
I can articulate this actual thought.
What's actually going on. But we talked about this a little bit with Joe before. I want to hear some of the audio from a couple of the winners last night, because he made this point, and we had been talking about it off air as well. Here's Vanya, who's one of the co-champions yesterday. She won.
Sharon Schnitter. SCHERENITTE. Sharon Schnitter.
Correct.
So get out of here with that word. I don't even understand that. And here's the other word that Gokul, one of the winners, won on.
Non-attack.
Non-attack. Non-attack. NUNATAK. Non-attack.
Correct.
Boom. With that's a mic drop situation. That's a mic drop situation.
Ow.
But that first word? Are you kidding me?
This is what bugs me about the spelling bee these days, right? Like, it's not proving how smart you are. These kids don't know what those words mean. I think it's just a memory game now.
All right, we're going to end the segment on the best clip from the spelling bee you've ever heard in your life. We're going to get back to the program later, but I'm just going to let you know this is the best thing you've ever heard about a spelling bee.
Bacchias. Can you use it in a sentence?
Rumor has it that Drake's next mixtape contains a rap in which every verse begins and ends with a Bacchias.
What?
Dog.
What?
That's incredible.
What just happened?
I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
What up, kiddos? I'm Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, and I'm hosting The Bill Press Show today, filling in for Bill on a Friday. Got a couple of guests here in studio with us. We've got Robin Miller, bar manager at Casa Luca, as well as Luca Giovanni, bar manager at Fiola Mare. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's Negroni week coming up next week.
Yes, it is.
So let's get the particulars out of the way in terms of your cause and what you're doing and what Negroni week is all about.
So essentially, Negroni Week is a international week-long event where restaurants around the world and bars contribute a certain portion of their profits from selling their particular Negroni towards a fund that basically gives aid to people who can't afford culinary school. So it's almost like a scholarship program.
Okay.
So it's for a good cause, and we get to show off and have a good time. So it's fun.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. What's going on here? What do you got for me? Let me describe the scene. I mean, tell me, and then I will describe what's going on. We have various glassware here in the studio for those of you listening. One guy's is nicer than another's, but we won't get into that. But what is a Negroni, and what are you going to be serving?
All right. Well, for starts, Negroni, the concept is it's a gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth cocktail.
Okay.
The roots of it go back to 1920. There's two different variations as to how the Negroni came to be. The first one, and probably the most recognized one, is Count Camillo Negroni is his name, and he was at one of his favorite bars, and the Americano was all the rage at the time. The Americano is a combination of Campari, sweet vermouth, and club soda, garnished with a lemon peel. And Count Camillo was a notorious let's say heavy drinker.
Right.
And he said he wanted a little more kick to his drink. So his bartender said, well, let's substitute gin for that soda water. And threw an orange twist on there to signify that it was a little bit different.
Right.
And that's one way of how it was born. The other variation is, it's a Count Oliver, do you know what I'm talking about? Castillo Oliver Negroni, I believe is his name.
Okay.
And he was a French military officer, and on the eve of World War I, he decided to put a little more punch in his drink by adding gin instead of soda. And he was quoted as saying, dying here. It's essentially here's to the grape shot. Let us dodge it. Something along those lines. And so that's where the birth of Negroni came from.
All right. Well, let's get to it. Luca, what are you making today? Yeah. What? So let's do it. I'll describe this.
So for our Negroni Week at Fiola Mare, we did a twist of one of our signature cocktail over there, where we call it the cocktail series, where we basically pair around with our cigar box we are offering to our guests, and in this case I just infused the sweet vermouth with a cigar, so it's going to be a great cocktail for anybody who are into like cigars. What we did, again, Cocky Americano, in this case we're using, infused for 7 days with Monte Cristo cigar. What you do is just cut alongside a cigar, you torch it for like a few seconds to be like a smoke flavor, and let it sit for 7 days. These give more like almost like a nutty flavors that you receive from the leaves, mixed with Campari, of course, and gin. After mixing it the first time, we noticed that the Campari was overwhelming the entire cocktail, so we add some Gran Classico. I would say Gran Classico is the brother of Campari. It's made in Switzerland, but the recipe originally is from Italy, and it's a much smoother drink liquor than Campari. Mixed together, we are serving this fancy cigar box.
He just opened a cigar box full of little bottles of booze.
Bottle.
that look like oversized shampoo bottles
this
from
is like a
hotels.
Great way also to make it on your home for your friends. If you don't know, maybe you don't have the special technique the bartender can have, the tools. What you do is just mix 1 part of gin, 1 part of sweet vermouth infused with cigar, half part of Campari, half part of Gran Classico, add 1 part of water. That basically is the water you receive usually by shaking or stir the cocktail.
All right.
What you do, you add the water, you leave in the freezer for a few hours, and it's ready to go. You add the fancy ice ball, ice sphere we are making.
Oh, he's got to just put a ball of ice, literally, into a nice.
Yeah.
That's a glass. I was going to say something different. I was going to try to make up a word, but I don't really know. So this is fancier drinking than I'm used to doing. So are you making something too, Robin?
Yeah, I have a couple drinks I want to make for you. We have our Negroni Week cocktail called the Dutchman, and then we also have a different Negroni. They're both barrel aged. We have a couple barrels at Casa Luca we've been playing with.
All right, well, let's get to it here because we're running out of time. So I'm just going to taste them and tell you which ones I like the best. How about you guys want to compete? Oh, there's a ball. See, okay, so this is.
Yes,
it always fascinates me how the ice industry has changed. Okay, so I'm tasting.
This is going to help, it's going to dilute less.
There's zero chance I'm drinking more than a sip of this. Okay, so I'm tasting, what is this called again?
We call it Negroni Robusto.
Negroni Robusto, all right.
So there is some nicotine in it, of course, on the leaf, so it's gonna make it shake.
Whoa, that's good, but that's strong. Okay. That's a drink that you drink when you're waiting for a table at a restaurant, and you're gonna have like wine later or like a beer later, and you don't want to get one down, but you're not drinking 5 or 6 of those in a night unless you're really trying to get hammered.
Clinton, we're actually locking the door and we're not letting you out to finish all the alcohol in the studio.
Well, as long as you turn the cameras off, we'll be fine. No, I'm joking. So, Robin, what are you mixing up here?
So this is a variation on a classic Negroni. It's our Negroni wheat cocktail. It's called the Dutchman. We call it that because we use a Genever, an aged Genever, instead of the traditional gin. I think it adds a little bit more floral aspect to it. It's a little bit sweeter, a little more herbaceous. It's more complex, in my opinion.
Okay, and I've noticed you're not using. You have chilled it.
Give me 1 second.
But you have not used the actual ice cube.
Is
there a strategy there? Or is that just your personal choice?
It's just how you want it drank, how you want it served. It's part presentation, but for me, I want it to be drank the way I made it.
Right.
If you drink it too slowly when you have ice in it, it gets over diluted, and so people tend to be like, well, my drink is now weak.
Right.
And
That's
without the ice, it makes it kind of perfect.
Okay, so this is the Dutchman.
Yes.
Oh, that's fresh. I like that.
It's a little bit more springy.
Yeah, it is a little bit more springy. That's a good one. Okay, so what else do we have?
This next one is our other barrel-aged Negroni. We did a series of Negronis at Casa Luca.
Right.
And this one is gin, Plymouth Dry gin infused with grapefruit and sage.
All right.
Mixed with Dolan Rouge and Campari, and barrel-aged for about 4 weeks.
How popular is Negroni Week, Luca? I mean, do you think people have any idea of what...
I mean, they started in 2013, if I know wrong, and I think it's our job as a bartender to teach the guests. I know they sponsor it right now. We're getting better, let's say, to let people know. But this is what's going to happen next week. We're going to start already with our guests, try to make them understand what's
going on.
And again, Negroni is so well known that I can see that people are going to get it right away.
Okay. I like these little bottles here, dude.
Yeah, it's something different.
Look at these things.
I like to.
There's corks. I'm going to describe them now. There's corks. I mean, how many ounces would you say this is?
4 ounces.
4 ounces?
4 ounces.
Yeah.
You have
a nice bottle.
Yeah, this you can find it online.
Right.
Specialty bottle website.
It's pretty cool.
Boxes come from eBay. You can find it.
eBay. They've got everything. All right. So this one is.
This is called the Il Conte. It just means the Count in Italian. A reference to Count Camillo Negroni, one of the places where it's supposed to have originated.
Whom you referenced before.
Yes.
Yes. Count. That's a great. I'm going to start calling myself a count. Just because. Why not? Count Clinton. If I had kids, I would force them to address me that way. All right. There you go. This is one.
So yeah, it's a grapefruit and sage infused gin with Dolan Rouge and Campari, barrel aged for 6 weeks. I
like this one the best.
Really?
Yes, this is good.
Super complex, really interesting, and the barrel aging process adds another depth to it. It makes it softer, a little bit more genteel. It's tasty.
Okay, well, is that all we got? We got
I also brought ingredients for a classic Negroni, so you can see just the comparison from our variations to the original. So if we have a second, I can do that for you.
We got a second, sure. Why not? You're here. No reason not to.
So we're just doing equal parts Beefeater gin, Dolan Rouge, and Campari. It's a very, very basic classic recipe.
Mm-hmm. Let me set these up so I can take a picture.
Go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Like I said, one of these guys has better glassware than the other, but I'll let you sort that out for yourself. And I only say that because that's what Robin said, not because that was my opinion. So?
But it's not about the glasses.
It's not about the glasses. That's a good point. Let's see here.
All right. So let me get some ice.
I'm also fascinated by the evolution of the ice industry, by the way, like these big cubes and big circles of ice.
It's a difference. What we do as a Fiola Mare, we buy this 25-pound block, and then I have my barback trained to cut them.
To cut them down?
Yeah. Spend like it's 8 hours every Tuesday. Just,
the cubes,
in a freezer to cut
I imagine the cubes are easier to do than the balls.
Definitely. The ball we are using like a aluminum press. It costs over $1,000 online.
Right.
But it's great too. If you want to do a good present for your friends who like scotch, one of those. I mean, it's expensive, but you know.
That actually would be a good present.
And he had to dilute much lower than regular cold.
Okay, so this one is what? This is the last one we're going to have.
This is a very classic Negroni,
He's fishing a stray piece of ice out of the glass.
Very specific.
Yeah.
It matters, I swear.
I believe you. See, this is not. I got to tell you guys, I'm a beer guy. This is not my normal. Not that I would ever really be drinking at this hour of the morning. Anyway, I'm just saying my normal weapon of choice. Weapon of choice is not the Negroni, but I like these. They're refreshing, and I might give one a shot soon.
Yeah.
It's really like an art too when you think about it. What you guys do to.
Classic is good.
Yeah.
The classic is
But
good.
it's difficult to find good Negroni around because it's always say it's a good Negroni. It's nothing better than a good Negroni. It's nothing worse than a bad Negroni.
All right. Wow.
If you mess around, you mess around.
Robin Miller is the bar manager at Casa Luca. Luca Giovanni's the bar manager at Field Amate. And Negroni week is coming up. It's good, so drink them. Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome.
Very appreciate it. All right. I'm Clint. It's the Bill Press Show. I've had sips of 4 Negronis. Good thing the show is about to end. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the program. My name is Clint Yates, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. What's up, Peter?
I just came back in for the booze.
For the booze?
Yeah.
How about sipping a little Negroni here for Negroni week?
You know, because it's breakfast time.
Just had some cocktails made for us here in the studio. But I want to get to this story here because we were talking about it earlier, which is a picture went viral of a man who proposed to his fiancée at a wedding. Now, as it turns out, this whole plan was concocted by the bride herself. at this wedding, so we can presume that there was no ill will involved. But what do you think about that? In terms of the move, in terms of the whole situation, in terms of, I don't know, weddings are weird. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, and if somebody proposes to somebody at this wedding, I'm not really into that.
I can't think of anything more douchey than proposing at somebody else's wedding. Like, I can't think of a bigger make it all about me moment than to go to this, whatever you think about weddings or big weddings, right? Like, it's a moment where two people deserve all of the attention in the room.
Right. Otherwise, don't go.
That's right.
Which is fine.
There's no shame in that
Nothing
whatsoever.
wrong with
but
that,
if you're going to go and you're going to take all of the attention away from this wonderful moment between these two people who are committing themselves to each other, yada, 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 all the Hallmark stuff, right? If you're going to go there and then you're going to say, oh, but wait, look at me. Yeah. Look at me, everyone. I'm getting married too now. Go fly a kite.
And you think about it when you wear white to a wedding. Like, you upstage the bride by wearing white.
Yeah.
So you know that is already a faux pas.
Right.
So by that evidence, one should know you should not try to upstage the wedding by proposing to someone.
What makes this even weirder is that if it was the bride's idea and the bride and the proposee, whatever, the woman who was proposed to was the bride's sister, is that a subtle dig in the manner of, like, maybe this wasn't happening if I didn't somehow put this into, like, that's a weird,
there's something going on.
That's a very, and I'm not, whatever. I don't know what their relationship is. Obviously, I'm clearly armchair speculating here, as we do here on the Bill Press Show.
That's right.
But that just seems like a strange way to sort of get into that. And I feel like if I'm that guy, I'm like, nah.
No.
You know what? Not going to do that.
Absolutely not.
Going to wait for my own terms in my own situation because this is weird and I don't want to get ridiculed by half my crew.
Exactly.
That's a strange scenario.
I mean, weddings, big weddings, small weddings, whatever, right? Like, there are plenty of criticisms about how people go about having these big weddings, right? Like, whatever. But every woman that I know that's gotten married likes to have a little production to it. And a lot of men I know that got married like to have a little production to it.
Right.
It's the one time, save your 25th wedding anniversary and then on, that you deservedly command the attention of all of your friends.
Right. Socially.
Right? Like retirement parties, big milestones in your life, your wedding. You are the center of attention with good reason.
It seems like it devalues both.
It does.
To allow an engagement, a proposal to happen at a wedding. I don't get that.
Don't do it, ever. I don't care if a bride comes to you and says, I've hatched this great idea for you to propose at my wedding. No.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. You're setting yourself up. It's a terrible idea.
How's the Negroni?
It's wonderful, by the way. I've had a couple of the variations here. I'm not sure which one this one is, but
That's
I think this
the
is
cigar one.
This is good.
That's the,
I like this.
I forget
It's
the
smooth.
name, but that's the one that Luca from Fiola Mare had.
I like this one. I haven't had some of the other ones in there, but
There'll be a taste
I'll
test
get to
after
them.
the show.
I'll get to them.
All right. When we get back, we're going to wrap things up. It's been a long week. It's actually been a short week. Yo, by the way, short weeks are deceptively long.
It's deceptively
long. Because you're thinking, it's a 4-day week. No big deal. And then you realize, I got banged out on the whole weekend, and now I'm tired as hell, and I can't do anything for the rest of the week.
Oh, God, it's Wednesday?
Yeah, exactly. All right. When we get back, we'll finish things up. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, kiddos. End of another week. It's Friday today. What did we do
today, man?
Yeah, what did we do? We made it through. We talked to Assistant Washington Editor for The Nation, Zoe Carpenter. She was good. Discussed NSA stuff. We also talked to the Boston Globe's Evan Horowitz. Talking FIFA. That vote's happening at noon if you care about that kind of stuff. We also talked to Lenore Skenazy, who... the Generalissimo of the free range kids movement. I know, I had to say it just once. We also talked to my buddy Joe Heim, who's a writer and editor for the Washington Post, about the spelling bee. And we just now had Robin Miller and Luca Giovanni of Casa Luca and Fio Lamade, respectively, for a Negroni week.
Yeah, you know.
So
gin for breakfast.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Rarely a bad idea.
Which means it's time for, what are you doing this weekend?
What am I doing this weekend? I am going to AwesomeCon.
Oh, right.
It's this weekend.
AwesomeCon.
Yeah, the big comic book
comic
superhero.
Who are you going to dress as?
Oh, yeah.
No dressing up for me.
No dressing up for you? What about the kids? Are they into that kind of stuff?
Well, I was thinking about this because they were Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy for Halloween, so we have those costumes in stock.
There might be a twinge of envy if they go and they're not in costume.
Yeah,
that's possible because people are in costume, and it's like there's this. I went last year, and there's a certain part of you that feels, I don't want to say out of place, but it's like, oh man, maybe I should have a costume on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's AwesomeCon. Like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah, Peter, you could just not dress and just be the family circus dad.
Yo.
Oh, man. For those of you who have not seen Peter Ogburn, he looks exactly like the dad in Family Circus, except now he has a beard.
I grew a beard because somebody called up and told me I looked like the Family Circus.
You do. It's a spitting image.
Yeah.
Literally.
I know.
It's a talent, really.
I get it. But that's why I grew a beard.
The memes will happen. I'm going to see Mad Max this weekend.
Go see Mad Max.
I need to see that movie.
See it.
I need to see it. All right, for Peter Ogburn, for Elisa Murphy, for Jamie Benson, for Cyprian Bolding, I'm Clinton Yates. This is the Bill Press Show. Have a good weekend, y'all. Safety first.
This is the Bill Press Show.